Hello, Peter's picture and Rob's chair.
Good morning. Munching
My
away so you
volume
don't
is
have to
very
watch me
low for
chewing.
some reason. Let me check my settings. Okay, can you speak again, Peter?
Yeah, munching away so you don't have to watch me chewing. I have the cam off.
Okay. Andrew, could you speak as well? I have some problems with my volume.
I just got in. You wanted me to say something?
Yeah, you did. And the problem with my volume was that the volume was low. So I managed to
Oh,
fix that by doing that. That was a bit embarrassing.
nice. Yeah, my
So
voice is going to be a bit off today. I got sick.
no, you had a big party is what it was, right? So Andrew, I'm going to apologize to everyone for Monday. That also, one thing I need to do today, we do have an agenda, is to go through your and Dini's document because I think there's some clarifications needing done. There's definitely more stuff I want done, so we have to do a bit of arm wrestling. Most of that will be in the future. That's not what I want to present today. It's for clarification, and I think the thing that was added separately is already there. I just want to go through and make sure that you are on the same ballpark place, carpet magic. Anyway, we'll wait till Dini gets there. Let me just get that, just get the boom. Right, the agenda is out. So the agenda today is all very exciting. And yeah, I can just tell you what's on the agenda because it's pretty obvious. We're going to do a few minutes of updates, including update about yesterday. And then I'm going to go through the notes from your document, Andrew, that you did with Dini. And then we're going to go through what you've got, Andrew, the reality of it, and maybe talk a little bit about the long video you did, which is really cool. And then we got an introduction to Mark starting to host a bit of metadata. Oh, I copied and pasted the wrong thing. How weird is that? Hang on a second. Copy to clipboard. And that's another reason that I think Dini is so great. Oh, sorry, Dini, there you are. Hello.
Morning.
Morning. Right, now that Dini is here, I can apologize to all of you for Monday. Monday was a really important and wonderful thing, but when I signed up for it, there was no agenda made available. So I thought there was going to be a bit of a presentation and would be all over. But it kept going and going, and there were some really worthwhile people for our network there. So, Dini, I am very sorry you had to take over at last minute. Of course, you're an expert at running meetings, but I'm sorry that it was a last minute thing. And I think maybe it's a model for the future because we aim to have themed sessions. So you managed to whip up a theme instantly, which is kind of amazing, to be honest, despite not being surprising because we've seen you do that a million times. Have you all got the agenda? So, okay, I'll start with a brief update what it was like on Tuesday. And to be plain and fair with all of you whom I consider close friends, it was actually a bit depressing. It was really nice to be there, and it was really nice that so many people knew who I was, and so many people knew what we are doing. Dave Duror was there, who is familiar with our sponsors. I don't want to put too many keywords into this transcript. Also, it turned out that one of the preeminent professors there also knew our connection person really well, so that was a really wonderful thing. Excited what we're doing. All these people, all very good, but the reason it was a little bit depressing was metadata. I am of such a firm opinion that if you're going to have a digital active and interactive environment, you got to have the metadata. I know we all agree. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the reason it was a little bit depressing in this context was so much of what was brought up by speakers on stage can at least be partly solved with better metadata. So I felt that the work personally I've been doing clearly hasn't been enough to make enough of a dent to, get it on the agenda. I'm not saying I should be up there by no means, but the work that I've been doing and now that we are doing together, I mean, the metadata we're doing is obvious, but it's not obvious to some of the heavy hitters of the world. So what Dini and Andrew had put together in this plan document is a really, really shining example of what cannot happen without metadata. All these things on there are described. And Dini, I went through the yeah, actually no, that's next. Anyway, any other announcements, please?
What was the name of this event? Where was it held? Who hosted it?
It
What
was
was
the
it about? I mean, I really don't know anything about it except the things the videos you put in Slack. So what was it?
it was sorry, I was trying to find it. It was the 50th anniversary of the internet, hosted by the Royal Society in London, organized by Vint Cerf's People Centered Internet with Mei Lin, Wendy Hall, and Web Science Institute, and all these interesting things. So it turned out it was a whole day event. I was only invited for the afternoon. The morning was kind of a working session for very specific techies. There was one similar event in Palo Alto as well, and so this was the British version. And a lot of it was really nice. Tim Berners-Lee was there, and he's just such an incredible human being. Not only ridiculously intelligent, but also such a warm and human person. So I got to talk to him a little bit. Alan Kay was there, and because of his cancer treatment, he couldn't talk, so we just emailed afterwards. And as some of you saw with the video, he really did his "we shouldn't copy paper" speech in a new way. So that was wonderful. So I think I should invite all of these people to our symposium and book. I know some of them would be very interested, some of them maybe not, but I think we need to invite more, as we all agree, obviously. Partly to get them involved, but also partly for them to know that these are even issues.
That helps. Thank you for telling us that.
Sorry for the lack of context. It's something I frequently complain to others about, so thank you for making me clarify that. That's funny. Yeah, Peter.
Okay, I had some interesting conversations with the ICEE folks, and it became pretty clear that when it comes to metadata, they have a tremendous resistance to the idea of taking time to do the actual data entry. They were like, if some AI magic could come along and pull in records, or if we could connect a couple catalogs and get all of the data in. But the idea of actually sitting down and doing the initial upfront data entry is something that's pretty loathsome to them. And they don't want to alter their workflows to be doing that. And that got me thinking, maybe we should think about what we can do user interface wise to make that data entry less painful. Because I was talking to them about the different reference managers out there, Zotero, Mendeley, and they really hate them all because they basically just throw up with one big giant monolithic form that has all the imaginable fields in it, and you're staring at all the fields, and there's nothing to help you decide what type of an entry out of a set of options should I be using. How do I organize getting that data in? And when it's just the equivalent of a blank page, even though it's a database form, it leaves them feeling stranded and not willing to invest the time to do it. And of course, there's also the risk that everyone would do it in a slightly different way. So that even though you'd have people entering metadata, you'd wind up with a different take on it. So it'd be almost like everyone has their own separate ontology. I tried showing them the Protege ontology editor, and that was totally alien terminology to them. They never heard of a description logic, and the notion of using subsumption to classify documents based upon field. It was just basically complete alien tech, and they essentially shut down when they were exposed to that because it was so far away from their basic backgrounds, which were mostly art historians. So it was bad enough that you're dealing with computer systems, but then you start throwing on the semantic web terminology on top of that, and I might as well have been giving a speech in Klingon.
Oh, that would be nice. A speech in Klingon. Yeah, I mean, part of the metadata we're talking about here, of course, is retaining what is already there. So that the cost or system is definitely important, and that's something we'll talk more about later today. And Mark, you hope to do themed sessions on Mondays on metadata as well, right?
Not the particularly I was aware of. I mean, I just put a comment in the sidebar. I mean, Peter was not reporting his thoughts. This is somebody else that what he's reported that I'm responding to. But we really need to move people away from such naive thoughts like creating metadata, putting stuff in boxes. It's not data collection. It's just writing. To be honest, you can't put in you can't show what isn't there. So we've got all these systems where people want to do all this cleverness, and they're always assuming there's information that isn't there. And the other thing about the sense of it being in boxes is it creates the notion that it's some sort of a framework, which is fine if you're a database engineer or something. But again, it's not how human rolls, and we need to be more flexible. Part of the social engineering challenge is to get people to understand that the more they record, the more they can use. And then there needs to be a dialogue with the people who have the structural coding skills to say, okay, well, this is a sensible way to encode this, rather than just say we'll use acronym X or acronym Y. Because again, I just go back to the analogy of having a builder in to do some work on your house. You can tell them what you want. If you're attentive and listen to the builder, they'll probably explain that what you want is not best built in the way that you imagined. And if you're attentive to that, you get a better solution. And that's something else that bedevils metadata, because it's treated as this word about something behind the curtain that thankfully we don't have to do. Well, of course we do, because we includes us, so it isn't something we can just treat as an other problem.
Absolutely. So, yeah, any other updates? Because then I think, yes, Dini.
Yeah, I spent Monday getting flights to Poland. So I'm going, Andrew's going, James L'Esperance and Ted Fordyce from my program is in the new graduate program that Klaus and I have founded at ACM. So they're going with us. And of course, John Barber is going with us. So there's 5 people. Getting to Poland was easy. It was an 18-hour layover. We had a choice between Amsterdam, Atlanta, or New York City. I chose Amsterdam. And so it took a while to get all of that structured. It was like a day of that. And now I'm waiting to get Frodo's flight information so I can get his ticket purchased. I also processed, huh?
No, I just said, yeah, please go on.
Yeah. And then I just processed Fabienne's contract. So that's gone, his MOU's gone to the grant office, so that's done, so he can travel. And I guess that's an update there. So just a lot of little things. And then of course, Andrew and I finished the plan yesterday, added the things that Frodo wanted, and we have made it available. So we're ready to go. We have a blueprint going forward with a few little tweaks that we'll have to make due to user testing. We do have a plan. Also this week, starting tomorrow, the ELO conference starts and it goes all the way to Sunday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's online 24 hours a day. Yes, Rob?
Can I ask what's going on at the conference? I signed up for it. I'm going to be in Paris, and I was planning to fly up on Monday, I guess, and come back on Friday. But I've been given 2 papers to evaluate, one of which has gone through and the other one vanished. So
I'll tell you, the review process, I reviewed 24 papers. And I sat on the plane coming back from one of my trips from Europe and did all 24, right? Because I had like 15 hours of travel. Turned them in, Rob. And then I got a notice back that they hadn't received them. So I reattached them and sent them straight to the conference chair. She then wrote me back and said, "Oh, you didn't have to do all 24. You only had to do 9." And I said, "Please accept the 24 because I've already done the labor." That was back 4. And then I received a couple of more notices that more papers came in just recently. I didn't review them. So the review process, I guess, in a nutshell, has been a little bit weird. The conference starts on Thursday. The links have gone out. It's all online. Andrew and I have our presentation on Thursday. I have a formal paper with Mariusz also on Thursday. And then I'm on 2 other panels. So it's a busy conference. If you need me to share information with you, let me know. Just I'll send you an email after the meeting.
Yeah, I just am unclear even how long the conference is.
I'll
I
throw
got
the
my
schedule in.
email. They haven't listed any hotels on the site.
Well, there's no hotels. It's all online.
You
What?
guys are talking about different conferences.
I'm talking about the ELO conference.
Oh, no.
I think
I'm talking about the,
ACM. Oh, ACM's different. That's taking place in Poland.
yeah,
And that's in November, and that's in September.
right.
Okay.
That's the one I'm asking about. I thought you'd mentioned it.
Yeah, there's a nice website, and I've already booked our rooms. We're staying at the Dom Prestige.
What
then
dates
some-
are you staying, Dini? Just so I know about my flights.
I'm arriving on, I have to be there early because I'm teaching in the graduate programs, as is Mark. So we're arriving, we're leaving on Thursday, arriving on Friday. The graduate program starts on Saturday night with a dinner.
Which dates
all-
are these? What numbers? What
Okay,
dates?
let me pull up the schedule. Hang on a second.
Thank you.
Oh, this is getting scary.
Okay, I'm leaving on the 5th of September with all of us. There's 5 of us leaving all on the same flight. Arriving on Friday morning. Friday, kind of midday. Yeah, Friday morning-ish. Midday. And then we'll be there Friday night. We're going to play in Poland, the 5
Oh,
of us.
but Dini, what? Okay, I'll look it up on the calendar. I need to know the kind of dates. Okay, so
The conference starts, there's the workshops, I think, start on Tuesday, and it runs all the way till
on the 10th, right?
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's still a bit unclear, but I think what's happening is that it's going to be workshops in the morning on Tuesday and
Yeah.
conference formal after lunch, from lunch through till, I guess, midday Friday.
Actually, I think, Mark, I think it's a full day of workshops on Tuesday. There's morning and afternoon.
Yeah, so some I think are overlapping with, I think because of the number of workshops, some are overlapping with some conference items.
But the
It's
human
clearly, I
workshop-
think, still up in the air.
Dini, when
Yeah,
are you leaving? When you're going back?
I have to stay through Friday night, so we're leaving on Saturday.
Okay, I'll try to do the same. So
And then we arrive on Sunday morning. I mean, we
Yeah.
take off on Sunday morning back to the States. We have to spend the night in Amsterdam. So I plan to go to the Anne Frank Museum, which I've never seen, and have dinner in town. So the 5 of us will just take a little train into town.
sounds
Well,
good.
the Saturday, Sunday, Fred, is just the graduate summer school, so there won't be sort of conference activity.
Yeah, you don't need to be there for that, Frodo. We're going in early. I've got 2 people and I'm teaching. So there's 3 of us involved in the graduate program.
I'm thinking 9th till 14th.
Yeah.
That's about right.
That
Yeah,
makes
you need
sense.
to leave on the 9th and be there because you're giving a paper at the human workshop.
Yeah, so I need to arrive on the Monday for the Tuesday, and then so there's no stress. Leave on the Saturday. Should be fine. Yeah. So okay, good.
It goes till the
Yeah.
Friday afternoon, from what I understand. I mean, the formal schedule hasn't been posted. They're still looking. I mean, have you turned in your human paper yet, Rhoda?
Almost done. Sorry.
See, I
Lauren.
mean, they're still they're still taking papers.
Oh, the workshops are, and I my understanding is actually that's normal because one of the things also the workshops sometimes do is sweep up some overflow papers from the main conference, because of the comparative relative standing, and that's one aspect of it. But
But Mark, from a perspective of the teaching, what Klaus and I are doing is putting together a reading list for the graduate students,
yep,
and it's all coming from the papers. So, or most of
Cool.
it's coming from the papers.
if you need that, if you want some sort of standardized reference annotation stuff, if you give me the list, I shall listify it for you,
Thank
because I think that's kind of helpful for them. Yeah, sure.
And we're also
Is
building the curriculum. We
schedule
still don't
available?
have the curriculum finalized. Huh, Rob? What, Rob?
Is there a schedule?
Not
Not
yet.
yet. And I think I'm getting the feeling it might come together quite late. But essentially, Monday. The thing is, if you want to come to the workshops, be there for start of play on Monday. If you want to come for the beginning of the formal conference, you want to be able to get to the venue for midday Tuesday onwards, and then it'll close out Friday afternoon in the normal fashion. And then I think most people, because of the timing of flights, will probably be heading off on Saturday morning.
Can I do a screen share with everybody for a second, Rhoda?
Yeah, of course, Danny. I was just going to say afterwards, can you please put in Slack when you're presenting ELO so we know when to log on?
You have to have registered by now and you didn't, so you can't
Oh.
get in.
Oh, really? Even though it's online? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, they have to manage the number of people. It's become a big conference because it's free. I mean, it's absolutely free. You just have to join ELO to attend, and it's like $25 to be a member of ELO, so it's cheap as hell. Rob, here's the website, right? So ACM Hypertext 2024. Here's information about the accommodations here, the venue. It's a beautiful campus.
Okay.
It's gorgeous. I've been there before at another conference. Here's the accommodations. I'm not staying at any of these. I'm staying at the place that
I'm
Mario.
at the Mercure.
Say it again?
I'm at the it's Hotel Mercure.
Okay. I'm staying at the hotel that Marius recommended to me,
Which is what?
the Don Prestige. This is last year's conference. This is your pictures from last year.
Oh, they've been used. That's nice.
Registration is open, so I'll be paying for registration. I haven't done that yet. That's the next step. So registration is going to be paid for through the grant for me, and for you, Froda. Here's the organization committee here.
That picture
Calls and
doesn't
flow.
really look like you guys, but fair enough.
Here's the workshops. But they haven't put the schedule up yet. But it's going to
No,
be here when they do.
I think if there was, because I'm sitting in on the weekly committee meetings, I think they haven't got that far yet, because I actually sort of need to know as well for the
Yeah.
proceedings, but we'll get that.
Well, Klaus and I are working with Marius to try to get the curriculum done for the graduate program,
Sure.
right? So we're starting on a Saturday night, going through Sunday all day, Monday, and then workshops, conference, and that kind of stuff. So
I
We're
think
just kind
one
of-
of the things with the workshops is trying to get the two. It's trying to get narrative hypertext, which is David and Charlie's sort of gig, and human, to not be together because the largest number of people want to go to both those.
yeah. I thought they had split them up. I thought the morning
Yeah.
was going to be, one and the other. Marius and I have a paper submitted for one of them from our book project. So we're waiting to hear about that. Our demo has been accepted, and thank you, Mark, for all the work you've done on that. So it's been submitted. Thank you, Andrew, for the video. And thank you, Andrew, for the video last night for the ELO presentation on Thursday. And that's my report. Still trying to get organized. I've been working on food for the symposium and looking for folks to support it so that it's not coming straight out of our budget for the Sloan Foundation, because it's not that much money and expensive. Food is expensive here. Anyway, that's my bit. Thank you, everybody.
Very good. Yeah, so the next thing on the agenda for today is to go through making sure we have full understanding on the agreements of what is being built, not to make changes, but to highlight. So I'm going to share my screen now, and everybody should feel free to interrupt, particularly Andrew, because you might feel that there's an addition, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Let's see. So what I've done, Deanie, just for simplification for myself, there's only two phases because we only have two deadlines. How Andrew wants to have phases within that is totally fine, but I got so muddled with them. So you
One
don't,
interruption, there's actually three deadlines. There's the first conference, the symposium, and then the end of year one. So
Yes.
there's three deadlines.
yeah, no, absolutely. When you look at it like that, yes. At the end of year, I haven't looked at it in the same way. So this is what I think we've agreed. I've just elaborated a little bit on the language. There shouldn't be any surprises here. The text is small, so I'll read it. The user puts on a headset and enters into the virtual space where they're presented with options for how to view the proceedings through a list of table of content views floating in front of them. I just want to make sure we use consistent language. The options are long papers, short papers, posters, workshops by author, all by title, by institution, finalist subject to what makes sense in user-based testing. Selecting a table of content view produces the requested list of papers in a central column sorted as requested, with the view menu off to the side of the user's dominant hand for quick access. For example, selecting posters will result in a list of all the posters published in this ACM hypertext proceeding showing their complete bibliographic data. Selecting authors will result in the list of authors whose works appear in the proceeding. Specific details on what will be listed will be subject to experimenting. Literally, what will be in the box. Yes.
May I interrupt here? What is not clear here, we're not defining right now, is if you click on authors, you get all the authors in the proceedings. What happens after that? So maybe the next step is not this year, but year two, you click on the author and their paper shows up. But that's not in this plan.
Yeah, Mark.
I'll just go from here. In one sense, it doesn't change the price of fish, but paragraph 2, the way I would have done that was so the options will be basically from the bindings metadata, because depending on whether it's a journal or a conference or this conference or another conference, there might be no workshops, there might be no keynotes. So in other words, I would suggest that list is actually taken from metadata that will vary by binding because it's real world data rather than imagined data. So I think it's just flexible because it brings to the point that what you see is manifested from the information that lies behind it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we end up working back from screen labels. Yep.
Did you say bindings? Or he says based on the tidings. It's the bindings.
Sorry, well,
right?
I'm using bindings as a sort of trying to be as a non-specific word. I know in this case we're talking about proceedings, but something we've talked about in the past as proceedings in a sense
Mark,
is a
I just made a boo-boo. I think that's all.
I'm correcting him.
I
He
did-
misheard you.
I had a typo.
Okay, yeah. And there's
You were right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I've changed that, Mark. I completely agree. So, right. From the TOC view, the user can select an item, paper, author, etc. This action invokes a small box of information, a submenu that contains further details about the selected item. In the case of a
do you mean
document,
you said? I don't think you mean evokes. I don't think that means. Are you trying to say invoke, or do you actually mean shows? Because evoke means to bring to mind. So I don't think that's actually what you were intending there. But I didn't know quite what you did intend. Beginning of
invokes, I don't know what's better.
well, they mean quite different things. That's why.
But a thing comes up. Produce
Right.
it.
Well, would it not be probably more accessible to a wide audience to just say shows?
It's not a wider audience, it's for us, but okay, shows.
Yeah.
And again, this is really for us. This is not for external people. So let's clarify for our understanding and not worry if anyone else gets this. Right. Yeah, so this action shows a small box of information, which would be the abstract, etc., as we have up here.
Would now be a good time to
Yes.
address what Deanie mentioned, where
Yes.
that box doesn't, it would have to be changed if we're selecting, say, authors or something like that, or institutions, because it's no longer a specific document. So how do you picture that working? will the smaller box then be a list of the papers? The whole thing kind of gets flipped on its head in that situation.
Yes. The way I envision it is for this to be extremely interactive for the user and for us to keep this in mind for the future. If it turns out that you cannot do that in time, that's totally fine. But yes, the envisioning is that if this is a list of authors, you select an author, up comes the papers. It may also show more metadata about that author because we have it. So that becomes a matter of deciding what goes inside it. But yes, something like that. And then the question becomes, and this is what I also think Dini was saying, if we now in the pop-up thing have the author's name of the paper below, ideally you should be able to double click, so to speak, on that paper to open it like any other paper could be opened.
Question about that though, like in this particular time, I may have two papers in this conference. So double clicking on my name would pull up
No.
two titles.
The idea is you select your name, and then in the little info box, there is Dini Grigar and the name of all your papers,
Okay.
maybe with a bit of metadata saying one is a poster, one is a long paper, maybe your institution, all kinds of goodies, and then you choose which one of the paper to open.
We're not building, but the good news is we're not building that right now. It's just going to be there for the next stage. We're not building that piece out. We're just going to have it there, just a
Well,
list of names.
I just thought of a potential solution that doesn't veer as far off into making the authors different. Um, and this honestly may have been what you were trying to say, Frode, but I wasn't sure because that's what inspired the idea. Right now, I can't read it, but there's like bold headers you have going down the list of documents. So maybe if you select by author, it lists all of the authors in bold, but directly underneath them, it just lists the papers. So you never have to select the author to see the papers. All of their papers are just listed directly under their name. Um, it might be easier to sort of search that way.
Maybe, but the issue, and this is okay, the way that I look at this, and Mark and I've been talking randomly over the last few weeks about this as well. We're talking about boxes with stuff that invokes other boxes with stuff. So we got to make sure that the initial boxes show only what you want, because otherwise these get really, really long.
Right.
So
Well, that's what the menu is. They get to pick all papers, long papers, short papers.
yes,
So they're only going to see what they want anyways.
yes, but in the case, so yeah, when they see all papers like we have here, where the headings are taken from the proceedings, they only show, they shouldn't show the author names. They currently do that in my mockup. Maybe they will. That's something we have to experiment with, just to see the space it takes up. But the idea is that if the central column has names like Dini, the notion is that if we select her name and all of this stuff comes up, would it be hard for you to have an action item in there on her paper that opens her paper in there rather than in the main list? Would that make a difference to you programmatically?
Yeah, it's moving the functions into a bunch of different places depending on which category you're sorting by. So it definitely changes things a lot. And I don't think it was ever quite clear what the second half of the sorts did. But I think we've got a general idea here. And you said if we can't get to that working, then don't stress it for Poland. If we go the option that I just mentioned, where it still generates all of the documents in the big box, but just sorts them by author and then displays the author titles, that's less of a change and it's more approachable. So I might be able to get that working by Poland.
What I want to stress everybody is that we have put together a plan based on what was presented a week ago. Andrew and I have met with or talked with Frodo to add little odds and ends that he wanted. We redid the plan, and what you're looking at is here. Anything that goes beyond this is scope creep, and it's going to cause us to not make our deadlines. So if there's something in there, something that's not here, that would be in like next steps,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to add anything to this plan. If we need to tweak something, that's different, but adding more labor, we cannot do.
Yeah, Dini, I am fully aware of that. And what I'm trying to, the document that I got was, it wasn't really complete in the details. So to go through this, I think is an extremely useful review for us to do now. And Andrew, to address your comment, if you come back when you're looking at this and magically you had an insight to do what we just talked about, great. But if you come and say, guys, we're going to have to do it this other way by listing it, also great. It's really that simple. The key
Okay,
thing
perfect.
is, yeah, so the key thing is what we have agreed. The papers are the primary view objects. If we can accommodate authors as well, beautiful, but yes, no question, that is a stretch goal, so to speak. Right? So I think we're all very much on the same set of pages. Right. Also making it clear here that the user can open multiple documents. That's really important, and that can be done now. So much is already done. It's quite amazing, guys. So then a little more detail around the preview tear off. Nothing new. From the TOC view, the user can tear off / drag any document title, author name, if author view, or citation outside the bounds to transform it into a preview as shown on this side, below on the left. This small preview can be moved in the environment. That's really, really important. And to me, and I think we all agree, that is, of course, spatial hypertext. And in the sense we've been talking about it, it's also pretty much the map. It's most of it. Tapping on the preview evokes a complete document that can be read by the user in the XR environment. In case of an author name, preview will be the author name plus papers published or something. I don't know. Right? Stretch goal also, because we don't even expect authors at that level. Make sense?
Okay.
Now, this is a big note and this is a big question. If in this preview workspace where we have lots of preview items, of course we can have other items. The question to you, Andrew, is the lines that were in the kind of original map view, to use that language, are they really hard to make? This is not in the current design. It's been designed out. I just want to understand the context of where we should put it.
No, the lines technically aren't that hard to make. They're kind of tough to make look nice, but if just like the black lines aren't that bad. The more of the issue was they started having performance issues, especially with the save and load system. But yeah, they did work fine just inside the space. But I haven't seen a use for them in many of the recent designs. I'm not sure what this is that you're showing us right now.
The
I don't
idea,
recognize it.
the idea is that if we look here at this little thing here on the left, the little preview box, right? You have a few of those, and then you have the papers here. So if you now have an item, just to call it that, where it just has the word Ted Nelson that has been added through the hand menu, let's say, and you select that, all it does is point towards the papers that has the text Ted Nelson. That's it.
It points from where?
From, in this example here,
That's new.
so here
Yeah.
we have Ted Nelson on the right. The user has selected Ted.
Where'd that text come from?
It's
Yeah,
an
where did that come
element-
from?
It's an element in space. We haven't really addressed that, but I could imagine it could come from the hand menu, where you add some elements in the space. And it's
Okay.
literally just free-floating text that says Ted Nelson. In the future, it can be all kinds of crazy stuff.
So it's basically an ad hoc keyword list that
Yes.
is going to have to. It's going to have. Well, the question is how much of the metadata in each paper object it's going to have to match on the fly. Is it matching just keywords, or is it matching all fields? Is it matching case sensitively? Is it matching fuzzy search? Whatever. That's just something to. It is something to bear in mind, because at the moment we start doing this, in our mind's eye, we normally assume everything is immediate and accurate, and I can see that being another bear behind the scenes if there's an awful lot of crosstalk that's having to go off between the data just to know which lines to draw to where.
I
So
don't think this wasn't in the plan, so this is new. This is not part of what we discussed a week ago, and this is not in the current plan.
Dini, it was in the earlier, and I'm fighting now to understand how it fits. I'm not fighting to have it included. But I think it's a really important thing because we've been talking about this since the beginning in different ways. And I think we have a lot of the elements. For instance, in the really cool video you guys made, the beginning section is all the papers in space that you can select and move around. That's essentially that. It's just that instead of a paper, it's a keyword. And when you select it, we have to make a decision if and when we do this, exactly what Mark said. What does it search? We're not.
Can we put that in next steps? And that's in next steps.
I think it's better to take that decision when we're actually doing it. Otherwise,
Yeah,
we get
that's
spending
right.
time about something
Okay,
we're not
hang
building.
on, guys, let me just finish. There has to be, yes, because it can be different things, but the papers we're looking at, we are extracting different keywords for them, right? Different from what has been available in the past. We have been talking about using AI to extract keywords. We may not, or may, I don't know. We'll have to experiment more. But the reason I think this is really, really a valuable thing to keep in mind is that if we take what Andrew's already done with the free floating papers view, repurpose that to just be text, that all it does, if you select one, it hunts to see if there are any papers in any preview or list on screen that has it in its metadata, not full text. Because
Yeah, but
what that does, and it goes back to our very early designs, is you can then place these keywords far off to the periphery of your view. You can have a bunch of keywords here and there or wherever. I really think it gives a feeling for using the space.
But Fred, I don't think anyone's arguing about that. I think the point is that this is future work, so we should reapproach it when we go to the next phase. Otherwise, you know, the point that I take on board is that Andrew has a very full dance card at the moment, and so it's not that this is not a good thing to have, but it's future work, and we will be better discussing that if for no other reason than by the time we get to that gate, we will have doubtless had, you know, through things we discover, make small changes to what we're already doing. So
Yeah.
the conversation we have will be better informed. And I don't think anything we're going to do will work against what you're showing.
Yeah.
But to discuss it now is taking time from not off discussing things we do have to do.
I'm not sure why this was dropped. So that's partly why I'm bringing it up.
Because it wasn't in your plan that you presented a week ago. I mean, we only put in what you had shown us and we went through it. I went through it very carefully. It's not in the plan, and there are a lot of things we dropped that I wanted, but we couldn't build right now. We can build what we can build.
It is literally right there in the slideshow that was shown. It is there, but I just really need to get a feel for Andrew. And there are some few more. We all have responsibility that this is not only made right, but it is made at all. I am not here today trying to pile on responsibilities for Andrew, but let's pause this for a moment and go through the next few pages, because it is just really crucial that we're all really, really clear on this. Okay, so pause that for a minute. So on the interacting with the document, I think I have only basically expanded on what was written. When opening a paper through some sort of double-click equivalent action, which the user can do to several papers to have them organized in space, the document appears similar to a traditional academic PDF floating in space. The user can pinch and point anywhere in the document to scroll, as well as on the paper cut on the side of their dominant hand, which acts as a progress indicator. A point to or mouse over the paper cut produces an outline of the document. And here's a question, Andrew, that I'm not sure about. Will this outline be appearing to the right as is mocked up here, or because we have outline in the text in the bar underneath, or do you want to show it in the document? Can you do it on the right relatively easily? Is that the plan?
I think I had mentioned before that putting it on the right, it's not going to scale with the document because, you know, it has its own set height.
Yeah.
So I was just going to center it with the document.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that plan, that was what I was going with.
Okay, that's what I remember too. Yes.
But I no longer see a need for outline being down on the menu at the bottom.
That was my point. So
Okay, so do you just want read and reference? Well, you don't need read either then, because
No.
read is just switching back from outline.
Well, we're going to look at references next, because I think we have basically all of that too. So it might be a way to toggle between read and references, but that may very well just be one button.
Those aren't okay. I guess right now those aren't exclusive.
Yeah.
References are a separate thing.
So so right now we've agreed to get rid of the button that says outline. That was easy. No one wants that button, right? Cool. So then we go into what I hope can happen when you click on references. We take what you already have, which is currently shown off to the side, and you show it, hang on, you show it here. So this, where you had the main body text, instead you now show the references, but you show them visually in the style of the table of contents. So they're white text on gray, right? That you have, it's just now it shows off to the side. The change here really is, it would be very useful, I think, that if you can sort them by the options on top, along the lines of by occurrence in the document, by title, alphabetical, author, chronological, blah, 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 right? That's the first half. The second half is, and this would be incredible, I think, if the user then selects anything that was in the references, if we have the metadata, it shows the metadata of that on the left, very similar to what Mark and Adam did. And of course, if this...
What do you mean by metadata of it?
If we just have the... So here is a paper called The Boundary Between Reality and Fiction. If we know what that cites, just like what you did with Adam, we show that on the left.
So it's not metadata. What you're saying is you want to see the references within the referred to paper. So you want to look one level out of references.
Completely correct.
Which would, I'm just looking at, it's just there's quite a lot of implicit stuff of metadata that we are drilling for. One thing to bear in mind with occurrence is papers don't necessarily occur only once. So you've got to do that's got to be found from somewhere, exactly where they occur. The other thing is institutional is not unique, unless
Mark, I'm not worried. Mark, all those issues, we will, if we do any of this, we'll deal with it. I'm not saying we have to have institution up there. These are indicative of sorting options. That's all it means.
So why not just call it sorting options? It will be much easier, because the moment you start sticking very descriptive titles up, it's actually quite hard, because you have to think. You see this, think, okay, this is what's implied, and then you think of the bits behind it. I just call that a sort bar and leave it at that, and then it's much easier to build out from.
Fine. So the question then to Andrew, multi-step question. Number one, present to everybody. Is it first of all desirable to, when you click at the bottom of the document on references, to have the references appear as a column taking over the same space and letting that be sortable and allowing people to have a kind of interaction with them?
I do like it replacing the current space. That is going to be more work, because obviously we don't have that right now. But I do like that. I think it's more elegant. The current citation references don't really fit the current design, which is what Deanie and I were talking about yesterday. So this does work for that. You get into a lot more trouble when you want to select them and then show information, because I don't know how we would do that. None of this information is inside of our proceedings, which is where we're getting all of our metadata from.
It will be.
So how would no, they wouldn't be.
No,
What do you mean?
no,
How would these be inside of our proceedings? Because
So,
you never reference a paper that hasn't been released yet. So none of the
Oh.
papers are going to be from the same proceedings, so none of the references will work.
sorry. Sorry, I didn't communicate that. The paper that is in the main column are, of course, the references the person has done. It could be from a 1950s paper, right? So the paper we've been reading now, we're looking at what that's citing. If we have access to what that one is citing on the left, we do it. And you're absolutely right. I was wrong. That is not necessarily available at all. So we may have to cheat because one of the people I spent a good amount of time with yesterday is the president of the ACM. He was reminded of our visual meta. He was reminded of the process. And when I talked to him with a professor from another university who knows our funders really well, there was a very strong sense of the metadata approach we have taken makes sense. And it was a bizarre little side comment on how the ACM Digital Library now, what they're moving towards is XML, which is great. But XML, of course, is not a reading format. People don't generally have an XML reader on their computer. You could open it up in a web browser, but that's very limited. So Mark.
I think what he's referring to is the fact, certainly the current stuff in DLACM is basically an XML database. So what creates your PDF or the HTML things we see at the moment is coming out of XML. No one's reading the raw XML.
Yeah,
it also
absolutely.
allows all sorts of other things. It actually potentially allows some of the metadata that's sort of being referred to here, because essentially we're crawling towards the acronym API, because you basically would like to be able to query something
Mark,
and then be passed back.
This is outside of ACM. I made a mistake when I looked at this because the paper so let's say this is Dini's paper that she's written, right? We're looking at Dini's references. Dini may very well have referenced something that we know nothing about. So that means we won't know what citations are inside that. That is what's on the left here. So Andrew, you're absolutely right. We're missing that data. We may choose to do some creative stuff. We may choose to do AI. We may choose to just show an image.
Well, we do have it, but you go ahead, Dee.
What I'm imagining is that we are right now just limiting ourselves to this slice of the project, which is focused on the proceedings for the 2022 Hypertext Conference, or 24, right? One conference proceedings. But I'm imagining sometime in the future, I'm an academic that doesn't go to the Hypertext Conference, and I really like this system, and I want to put my own library in it. And I do have hundreds of papers that I can then develop for my own personal library. And because I collect a lot of Kate Hales's papers, if I click on, print as flat, code as deep, goes to her list of references, I may have, and in fact, I do have many of the references that she referenced in my library, right? Gundar and people like that. So that I can just kind of hypertext around spatially through these papers. That's the big picture. That's where we're headed. But what we're trying to get through today is what we're going to show at the end of year one, which is limited to a finite number of papers coming from one conference by a certain number of people who have, been accepted to that conference. So I want to get this down to a small amount so that we can be finished by 9:30 going through this plan. So this kind of stuff can be hashed out later. I think we should move forward to the next piece.
Yes. Dini, we're so in sync on this 100%. And I think in the effort of us wanting to show the potential, but considering we don't know some of these external documents, what they cite, of course, in the future, our system should enable that. We might just show a GIF that says, this is where we expect data in the future, maybe for some of these things. Because what we're trying to do here is really alert people to the fact that there's not enough metadata. It needs to be there. Here's an example. So, Andrew, you are there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah,
What if, for now, since we agree that this is kind of a big task and we're probably not getting it for Poland, if even year one, I could still have a sort of side box pop up, but that could maybe be some of the functions we currently have working for the references, where you can sort of disconnect it from the rest of the references and highlight them and stuff. That way we have like, oh, you can do some things to this, but people don't, I don't know, that way the references aren't just useless. You can still find stuff in the document, but it doesn't do all of this yet, and we can potentially replace that year too.
That's really important. That's one of the things I wanted to get to. The amazing stuff you have used that you've done, we aren't using. Yes, I would very much like that. Yeah, simple. What we put on the side for now just doesn't matter. If it's an image or nothing, that's fine. What's much more important is just what you said, to be able to have options to show in the document, to tear it off, because these references should absolutely be possible to have as little previews in the space like anything else to help the hypertext thing. That's important, right, Dini? I don't think it adds work, but the references should be tear-offable, just like the papers are tear-offable. Like,
Andrew, can you respond to that, please, since you're the one coding it up?
I mean, currently the references tear off, so I can probably get that working.
Okay, all right.
cool. All right, I think we're almost done. The demo tutorial, that's for all of us to work on, so that's simple in that sense. The hand menu, I've split that into two because you've done a lot of it. If we end up going to Poland and the hand menu doesn't do anything, I don't have a big problem with that because it's so damn impressive in itself what it is now. We'll do the functionality when we can. So what I've put here, which is the original, phase 2 for the future of text, hope to have the hand menu working. And here was the question around the map view. Yeah, so the work to be paused, I think we agree. The view we have of, which is in the beginning of this really cool video hub, the documents in space in the library view, that's going to go. And just as you said, Andrew, work to be integrated, ability to select citations and reference and tear them off, things like that. So I think that was very
Yeah, I mean,
productive. Yeah, please.
phase 2 is less explained, but that's okay because phase 2 is still a ways out. And I don't mind that having it be a little bit more vague, as long as we're not adding like huge new features. Because I don't mean to be the downer just saying no to things now. But I think we all agree we're actually at deadlines now. So unfortunately, all the fun experimenting has to stop, and we have to just pick a design, which we've done a good job of now.
We got to grind. This is the grinding time.
I agree. And for the literally a 1 minute thing, fly through in case there's an obvious misunderstanding. User goes into this thing, gets a menu, all papers, long papers, etc., chooses one of them, all the papers or authors show up. Select one, you get more info. You can tear one off to put it on the side, as you can see here. Maybe we can have little things floating in space that you can have point to any of the previews. We will see how that goes. When you open a document, you get the basic read view that we have now. The only real new thing would be removing the text outline, adding the outline on the right when you do a mouse over type thing of the indicator tear off thing, and that's it for now. And when you choose the view to see references, they are inside rather than on the side, and some interactions will be possible. We don't know which yet. That seems to be where we are, right?
Yeah, except for the map view, because we of course do not have a design for that. But the rest of those, yes.
The design, though, is literally you look at your hand, add whatever we're going to call these things, elements, and then you type something, and then you hit enter, and it's there.
You can't type. What do you mean?
No,
Do you want like a floating keyboard? This is the first I've heard of that.
I don't know. The thing is, we've spent a lot of time talking about the metaphysics of this kind of thing.
Okay. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just
No,
you don't know,
Andrew,
but I also don't know, and I have to develop it.
I'm
So
not
if we don't know, it probably
seeing
just
you
gets
as being
pushed off.
difficult at all. I'm seeing your questions as being both polite and very, very useful. We have the JSON import view of the Fabienne style space that we need to consider along with all of these things, and that comes a little bit later. That could also include importing some sort of a series of elements, right?
Yeah, maybe just for at least for Poland before we have it all refined, because I have the map view working. Maybe we just toss those on as menu items on the fingers where it's like show all titles in space, show all authors in space, show all tags in space, and that just sort of shows and hides the different nodes that can just sort of be around. So if you want to enable that kind of more messy, I'm inside the text space, we have that option.
I have an idea. This is exciting. I hope Mark will like it. I hope all of you, but especially you, Mark. Because we now have the notion, not necessarily implemented here, but the notion of having a document that is the proceedings cover that refers to all the papers. So that's the one that would list what's a long paper, short paper. So we have a document, let's call it a PDF, that contains the metadata for the proceedings as a binding, right? We have that. How about we also let the user open a document that has the metadata of the already created elements we're talking about. So let's say I sit in my computer, I write things in my word processor, and these are my elements, and I export them into our system, maybe even as a PDF. And as long as it's written in a way that you can parse, there they are. It's literally another element in the proceedings. It could even be included with the proceedings as the editor's choice of elements in space.
So you want the JSON to be visible.
Not
Is that my
necessarily.
understanding?
So imagine when you load up this thing, in one level, logically, it's a set of PDFs exported, each one PDF per paper plus a PDF that is describing the collection of papers. Hopefully we'll get it as JSON. Hopefully we'll get it as XML exported to JSON so we don't do any funny business and lose stuff. So all I'm suggesting is that we add, and in the beginning now, for the first year, it's not so important that the end user can make it, but logically, there is a bit in the JSON that is Ted Nelson and so on. Whatever those words are, just to use Ted since I used him as an example, that's just written. Right, and the cool thing about that is, me as an end user can make my own, but I can also open up Dini's. I can open up Mark's. Right, that seems to be a key because then I can see a very specific view that they have of what kind of elements they think are relevant. This is a key thing we talked about before that's kind of gotten lost a little bit.
Well, that was the library view I thought I heard just described, because until you get some way down the line in this extra information that doesn't stem from the actual documents themselves, so until that's created, you don't have these extra things to do. And then when you do, you are essentially interacting with whatever documents, be it a formal binding like a proceedings or something else, and then your own private metadata. And that's sort of fine, but I'm just trying to sort of draw the threads together so I understand.
A little bit, but I can imagine for Poznan that we open it up, person takes up and they have this beautiful central column of papers, and there are some things here and some things there and lumps there. And we call it Dini's metadata or Dini's room, right? Because that makes sense. So Dini has, on her own time, written a list of people she thinks are important, concepts she thinks are important for her, not pretending to care about anyone else. But the idea is the user sees her perspective, right? And in the future, they should be able to switch to someone else's perspective and, of course, make their own. So if Dini, for instance, Dini might very well, speaking for you, Dini, I hope you don't mind, have the term electronic literature, which is a very specific term that many hypertext people may not have thought about, right? So they select that and then they see all the papers that have been tagged with that term. I think that's useful.
Okay, so let me chime in here because I think all these things are useful, and I can imagine, like I said, this incredible, rich library that does all these things. But we're in month 7 of a year 1 deadline with 3 very hard deadlines, one coming up in just 8 weeks or less. And so I'm highly recommending that the plan that we have laid out stands. Anything that we want beyond that goes into next steps. And Andrew is set free to just hunker down and make the Poznan deadline and not add anything to this list that's not on there currently for the first year. If we need an additional programmer, we have $6,000 in our programming funds that we're not using currently, and we can bring in someone else to help out. But in the meantime, Andrew's got a hell of a lot of work to do. And my job is to make sure the project gets done. I want a lot of things. Frodo, you and I are on the same page. I want so much. I want to go back to our original plan. I want 360. I'm not getting it.
And we have
But
360.
I also understand we've got users who don't know how to use this stuff. We've got real time constraints, and we need to be very careful about moving forward.
Obviously, we agree, and it's a matter of small wrinkles here to an extent. Looking at the document that we had before today, there are significant pieces missing, like how to interact with references and stuff. So today was mostly about clarifying. Why don't we just say this? The core things, Andrew, are as discussed before. The only change that is really real is putting the references in the box, which cleans up the whole system. If you get to the point where you feel you have capacity for putting these thingamajigs in space, we can talk about it. I will not pressure you. The only reason I think it's good to have had this discussion, whether it's going to be done sooner or slightly later, is that I think it's a magical thing to do for the user, because even on a big screen with Author, which is of course very basic compared to this, to select something and then suddenly you see relationships is a bit of a revelation. That you have this connection.
I do agree. Just unfortunately, all of the prototype designs that the group kind of pushed me towards very much went away from that. So we don't have the backbone anymore for it. Maybe if we had gone different directions, we would have something with that, but then we wouldn't have what we currently have. So I don't mean to belabor the point here, but
I have a question.
yes, let's get what we have polished and then worry about adding new things potentially for the symposium. And if it's too big, push that to year 2.
I completely agree. The only small thing I would say is that if you can hack it, so you add 3 elements that are known to be in some of the documents, so the user can just have a feeling, select those.
What do you mean by elements? Do you mean like the keywords?
Yeah, let's call it keywords. Mark has been suggesting in the chat here to get about, let's call them keywords, right? So if we just have, let's say, 3 pre-chosen keywords,
I mean, we've had that for quite a while, where the keywords are just extracted from the JSON. You can't do anything with them. You can move them around the space. That's it. But we have those.
So the notion is just 3 or whatever tiny number, and then when you select them, they go to whatever preview or whatever in the proceedings that contain it, and that's it. I just think to give a feeling, this is something that can be faked. It doesn't need to be extensible or anything at this stage. Do you think that's considering the architecture?
Faking it doesn't really make it any easier. I'm not having trouble extracting the tags. I'm having trouble building all of the functionality. So if we fake it by having the tags pre-extracted, cool. But unfortunately, it doesn't really save me any time. Because I can currently extract the tags. That's easy.
So let me ask you this, Andrew, because I'm looking in my brain more and more about what you've done. One of the really cool things you have is that if you tear off a reference item into space, then you can choose to see the line where it came from, right? You can also
it just points back to the reference, which wouldn't work anymore with the new design. But yeah, I've got that right now.
Okay, and we also have you can click on it and it shows the sentence where it appears on the document, right?
Yeah, I can find in the document where the it pulls up all of them actually. If you look at the long video, I have one where it pulls up 4 references from a single citation.
What is the big change for you taking the references from floating into the box?
Mostly just layout design. Because every time you put something in a box, it becomes kind of difficult to develop. Just because of how we've got everything set up. Boxes actually are not easy in a VR space, which is fine. I can do that. That's not what we're like sort of debating here, right? I can get the references inside the document. I'm pretty sure that'll be fine. Weren't we talking about the map view?
We're talking about one view, and we're talking about going from proceedings to having previews turn off and moving them about, double clicking on a preview to see the whole document. That's the key.
Right.
So now we're talking about having a few keywords wherever, hopefully quite far away, that then point to where they came from.
So
Where
if
they
you select
appear.
the keyword, it goes and just generates a document preview if the keyword is in that document.
I wasn't thinking that. That's very interesting. I was thinking it draws a line to whatever document is on screen that contains that keyword.
Okay, but not all the documents are going to be on screen, right? So this would only work if the keyword happens to match one of the documents you have open.
Yes. Either
Okay,
as a
that's such an edge case. That won't happen most of the time.
No, it'll happen a lot of the time because all the documents will be open in the proceedings table of contents.
No, oh wait, okay. Sorry, let me just turn on my video again because I'm like gesturing. Uh, the document's not open in the proceedings, right? That's just the title of the document.
Yes.
So when you say the document's open, you really just mean point to the title.
Yes. Or an open document or a preview.
Yeah, I mean that's just complicated. I
Well,
don't think I have time. I can try, right? We
no, no,
can
no.
put it at the bottom of the list, and if I get to it in time for Poland, I'll definitely give it my best shot. I'm not trying to be like I won't do it. I'm saying realistically, it's probably not happening for Poland.
This is such a
I'll do my
wonderful
best.
this is such a wonderful discussion, Andrew. So let me ask you that, considering what you just said, um, would it be easier? I have Ted Nelson here. I selected, instead of doing the lines, underneath any paper that has Ted Nelson just appears.
Can I beg us not to talk about this right now for anything that we're doing? Can I beg on my hands and knees with all the love in my heart, all the respect? Can I beg us to stay on track with what we've got so that Andrew can finish this project? And then anything that you want extra, just write it into next steps. And you and I
Danny,
can have a private discussion about bringing in somebody else to maybe jump in and help out to get these things that you want. But Andrew can't do this right now. I don't want to lose him. I don't want him to have a heart attack, have a brain explosion, or quit because he can't do what we're asking him to do. And I've been managing teams a long time, and I don't want to see us get off track.
Danny, we're not building anything today, and you have a lot of opportunities to talk to Andrew where I'm not involved. I think I made it very, very clear that I'm absolutely not pushing Andrew. But as the technical developer side of this, guys, I'm in a meeting. You can come and wave hi really briefly.
Hello.
Hi, darling.
Hi, okay, guys, away. Go, go, go. Go, go, go. Yes, I love you. I gotta go. I gotta talk. I will kiss you till your head falls off. Okay, fine.
You cut your hair. You got your hair cut.
Yeah, right. I need to understand what is involved because Andrew understands it so much better than me. And what I'm doing now is not arm wrestling to get Andrew to do it, but there may be other ways where certain things can be done. And there may be things that I have thought were quite easy. Like I thought putting the references into the box would be a doddle because he has it. And now he's explained not. This is a really important part of the process. And today is let's make sure we review the document. The document you guys made is missing a lot of stuff, right? So I've tried to clarify it. We're going through it today. And I was just having a half an hour discussion on one of the features that is probably not going to be making it now. But is that so? That's not a bad thing, is it?
Well, I just want to make sure that we don't get off track. And I want to make sure that Andrew can get what's done, and we don't start to layer. Because you did have a chance to look over this and you did make changes to the plan. Andrew and I met on Monday or Tuesday and went through those, or Monday, and made those changes and then resubmitted the plan to you. So now we're having another discussion over our plan. We've already gone through with this team and with you. and we're doing it a second round, and that's unusual. So
Okay.
usually you don't do this. Know this.
All right. Okay. I don't understand why having a technical discussion with our coder is a problem. You spent so many times in this conversation just saying we mustn't overload him. I agree. But now that we've designed on the basic design, I need to understand what's involved. Right?
Fred, if I may, Fred, the thing is, we're going round and round the circles about things we've already decided.
No, we're not
essentially
going in
aren't
circles.
aren't
We're
in the
making,
current
no, we're
work
not
spec.
going in circles. We're making real differences. What Andrew is saying now helps me understand what issues are involved. I have learned a lot in this conversation. I do not consider this a circle.
I understand it's helping you expand it. The thing is, it's still discussing something that now isn't in the work plan. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. And I totally understand. And it's always interesting to discuss it. The issue is whether we should be having this discussion now or later in the process when it's actually, it can be addressed. So it's not that it isn't interesting
Is there
or
anything
important in
else
itself,
that's
but
more
it's whether we
important
do it
to
now.
talk about today then? I mean, one of the key things we will need to address is the metadata behind all of this stuff, right? So even if we don't implement everything now, which of course we cannot, we need to have a working understanding of where it fits. Like Andrew has been really positively pushy today about these keywords. How are they made? Where do they come from? These are questions we need to answer at some point. It's really useful to think about it now because this is the sign-off day. Okay, all right. Mark and Dina are exasperated. Andrew, what's up?
Let's try to put a last summary. So clarifying question from me about these tags, right? Because I have tags generating. I turned them off because they got laggy because there were so many of them. But we've had a version with the map where the tags from every document all generate in space and you can move them around. They don't do anything, but they're all there, right? You're talking about having the tags not generate all as one mass, but the tags per document generate. Is that correct? Or do you want them all still?
I'm going to have to answer that as much as I understand. Ideally, you can have as many tags as you want and as many layouts as you want. In the near term future, I don't mind if it's only one or two, and if they have to be stuck together for rendering reasons, that's okay. I do just, my naive notion is list of papers, some of their own previews, a few keywords, select the keyword, draws a line. That's it. It's the criteria, the implementation is tricky, I know, but the criteria really is that simple.
Where do the tags come from? Are they always in the space?
Yes,
Or do they generate at some point?
always in the space.
So there's just going to be a bunch of tags everywhere, and then you've got the menu in the middle that you can go through.
Yes, because one of the things that I think is so important for us to demonstrate is the 360 nature of the environment. So ideally, you would have to the left and right, and maybe even behind you, a set of your favorite tags. So you would then select them, and then you would look where they point to. Now, of course,
And then if
ideally,
you
in the
point to the
future,
tag, but I'm trying to make sure I understand what you're asking. You point to the tag and it draws a line to every document that's currently open that has that tag inside of its data.
yes.
I don't think this is gonna. How many documents do you expect people to have open at once? Because most of the tags will just do nothing, and then you'll find one that like points to the current document. It's not going to be really all that interesting, and it's going to take a good amount of work. So, do you see it like triggering more often than that?
So what I did in Author, I took all of the previous hypertext papers, made them define concepts, added definitions and tags and keywords inside each single one of them, and then I put the keywords on the side. One of the keywords that I used, which is not a very good example, is author names, right? Which of course we have in a very different. Hang on, what's this about not doing 360? When did that fall off?
How is what we're doing 360 when everything's right in front of you and it's all in a bounded boxes?
Like you can move them anywhere you want, 360.
But I can move one thing off and tear it up and move it over here, but what else is 360?
No, but isn't that the whole point, that you move whatever elements you want in a sphere? You can do
Andrew?
that now.
So it turns into 360. It doesn't start 360, right?
Yeah, it
It
starts
starts
like
as just a menu, but then you can get everything all around you eventually as you move it there.
That's the key
I think
beauty
that's what we're
aspect, as
doing,
far
right?
as I'm concerned. This is really important.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm not removing the 360 functionality. We're just no longer generating stuff in 360.
Okay.
I
Right.
think. I think that's the plan, right?
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah, really important. So, Andrew, the notion of a keyword in the sense of what is written inside an ACM document for years, Mark found out usually not that useful. People write the
Yeah.
keywords for themselves, right?
I went through and did the keywords already for the 22 papers. And there's basically no overlap between any of the documents.
Yes, exactly. So
Sounds right.
So what I've done since, I have a prompt in Reader that goes through the document and extracts based on my criteria. One of them being extract any names. So that's why I keep using the term Ted Nelson as an example, because he's coined the term hypertext, so it's likely he'll be one of them. So all I'm thinking about here is that we go through, as an editorial board, a few of these that we know will be in there. We run maybe some kind of a LLM on the papers to have a separate thing of extracted keywords that we'll have to check, so that when you select one, we will have pre-decided and pre-checked that they will be useful.
So you're picturing less keywords and a lot more overlap because we're doing them manually, and that's what you meant by cheating.
Yeah, well, also rendering was, we're doing them manually. I mean, Mark and I are going to have to do some arm wrestling over how much manual, how much ChatGPT kind of stuff we're going to be using, because it has to be representative, it has to be useful, it has to be honest.
Right. Basically, what you'd be saying is I disagree with the keywords. People have assigned their own papers, and we're going to recategorize them with our keywords, which is very much something you could do. But that means that you'd have to do that inside of the JSON file. So we'd
Yes.
go in there and we'd put the tags. There'd be a lot more overlap. So there's less tags just in space, and all of them now would higher chance of them actually pointing to the documents.
Yes, because
Okay.
the reason I don't use the term keyword is I don't know what to call these floaty things. Let's just call them floaters, keywords, whatever. It is exactly what you explained.
I would say, considering the design direction that you've gone with having the menu and all of that, having a bunch of floating text initially might look kind of gross, but having it as an option on the hand where it's like show tags and then they all kind of like generate in, that could be kind of cool. Because then the user is not like, oh, this is a really messy space. It's, oh, I made it messy. This is my space. It's just kind of tricking them a little bit.
That's super important, and that's absolutely one of the fingers. So absolutely, we haven't really discussed the fingers because that's going to be as we design, we see what functions to assign. But yeah, to have them look at the hand, and one of them says is see keywords, and then boom, they appear and hide keywords. Super important.
Okay, let me just I guess put a pin in it because it's almost 9:30. If we cut the keywords down to just a couple per document and have a lot more overlap manually, this is probably something someone else is going to have to do. I can put it into the JSON, but you guys will have to be the ones to figure out what keywords you want and what documents get them.
Mark
And I
can do
figure it's
that
going to be
together.
kind of a last minute thing because we can't start on that until we get all of the documents from the proceedings. But anyways, once we get to that, I can generate the keywords. I'm almost certain I can do that because I currently have the function built for it. Linking that to a finger menu is easy. So you pick like show tags and the tags show up.
Let's
I
call
pretty
it
much have
tags.
that already working. They may not do anything. Call them what?
Yes, let's call them tags.
Okay.
So
They may
tags
not
on
do
the
anything.
screen, you select one or many, lines appear to any open documents that contain those tags. That's it.
Yeah, okay. So the that's it is not quite as easy as it sounds. I can get them generating. I'm pretty confident I can have that by Poland. Um, Getting the lines drawn will take some extra development time. Um, it's not like an insane workload, probably a couple days. But considering that I currently have a pretty big workflow, those couple days may be hard to find. So I will try. They'll be on the bottom of the list, I believe, unless you want to deprioritize something else. Um, but I can get the keywords generating at least. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, no, look, I agree. Look, Danny and I agree on everything. Sometimes we say it slightly differently. This is not the number one priority. The number one priority is lift, view, open, all of that stuff. So let's just keep that going. Keep this in the back of your mind. If you can get them open as a few keywords in space, fantastic. Let's not worry about that too much. And anything else you want to have on the record before I pause recording for a minute?
There's a not 0% chance. So I don't know what percent chance it'd be, but there's a decent chance I can get that simple functionality working with the lines showing up. But it's considering how much we've minimized it. But if I don't get it, I don't want to have everybody disappointed just because everything else is more important.
Not at all. Anything else on the record? I'm going to pause recording now because I got to run.